Hi Libra, welcome to Yellow Card No Tarot with me. My name is Carole, and this is going to be a general reading for you for February 2026. And if you're coming back to my channel for another reading, I want to thank you. And if you're new to my channel, I also want to welcome you and I encourage you to subscribe. February is a big month for us, and after sitting down, the word authenticity came to me, and I thought to myself, I thought, okay, what card in the deck for me means truth, authenticity? And right away, it came out as the Ace of Swords. I know some of you might have thought of Justice, but I thought, to me, it's the Ace of Swords, and I'm just going to explain why. Whenever the Ace of Swords come up, it comes up by itself, and it could be, whether one of the court cards are holding on to it. It by itself, it just always, I always say that it's the sword that's going to cut through all the bullshit, right? Because I think we've been raised to believe so many things about ourselves. People told us things, and so you get to a point in life where you just kind of start to say, okay, well, who really am I, right? And so this is going to be a reading about clarity, about seeing things exactly as they are, not how you've been living your life believing it because of what people said, but getting down to the truth, getting really honest with yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, which means that there may be some really uncomfortable emotions that we have to sit with, and that might come up in the reading, because getting to a place of authenticity means that we're going to take off our mask and we're going to start living and speaking from what's real for you and not how or what you were taught to be. And so this is powerful this month, and I'm going to start off with, well, what I did was I pulled two oracle cards for you, and from two, probably my favorite oracle decks. Return of the Spirit is one, and then the Shaman's Dream. Now you're going to see me, in the readings to come down the road, I'm going to be throwing a little bit of shamanism in there because, as some of you may or may not know, I'm a shamanic healer. And so I do offer personal readings for tarot as well as shamanic healing, if distance healing actually. And if you're interested in a 15-minute consultation with me, it's absolutely free, whether you want to talk about a tarot reading or if you want to talk about a shamanic healing. The link is down below, and there's absolutely no pressure from me to continue this. I won't email you afterwards, or it's really something I think where some of us are kind of going, okay, I think it's time for me to start healing, like to really heal deeply, right? And shamanic healing is all about spiritual healing, and oftentimes it's healing that a lot of other people couldn't touch, and people that maybe you've been dealing with something for so long and you can't figure out what it is, and the spirits know what you need. And it's beautiful healing because it's very empowering. It gives back your healing, it gives back your power. So let's begin with your reading, and it's called Coming Back to Your Truth. And so to do your reading today, I'm going to use the Curious Travels Tarot deck. And I'm also going to be clarifying that with the A.E. White deck. So let's begin by talking about, I was going to start your reading, but I forgot to talk about your oracle cards. So, Shaman's Dream oracle card that I pulled for you. Well, that's actually, I want to talk about the Return of Spirit one first, because that was the one that talked a lot about where you are right now, Libra. It's called Vibrational. Now, there was just some really good lines in here that I had to get from here that I have to read to you, and I thought I couldn't use my own words to explain it to you. So I want you to listen to this carefully, because it just these two cards that I'm pulling for every reading just seems to pull it all together for the signs. So some souls come to the earth to simply experience life. However, you're not one of them, Libra. You have incarnated for a much bigger reason. The core energy of who you are and the vibrational field you carry has a profound effect on all those with whom you come in contact with. You did not come to this earth to improve your energy. You came to the earth to use your energy. How powerful of a card is that? Now, to be matched up with the Shaman's Dream card right after that. And this one was called the Sky Bridge. And Sky Bridge says possibility for union. You stand before a seemingly unbreachable abyss, and there is no possibility of retreat. The path behind you is no longer a viable option. You have to act soon, or you can run the risk of being stuck at the edge of the cliff. Sky Bridge appears when the moment is absolutely right for a quantum leap. Life believes you are ready, even if you do not agree. So you are ready for this leap, Libra. And this vibrational card says, you know, you are here for a reason. You came here for a reason. And it's time now. I wouldn't doubt it if, I wouldn't be surprised if the Fool card showed up for you, right? Because that's that card that says, you know, it's time for you. You need that push off the cliff. But I know that you're often very indecisive, Libra. So this is where you're sitting with this. Is like, okay, I can be very indecisive, but here I'm being asked to take that leap. So let's go into the tarot now. Now we're going to dig into the tarot. We're going to start off with what illusions or false beliefs are you holding on to that need to be released, right? Because I talked about it's time to get back to our authentic self. So let's have one card for the false belief that you have about yourself. And you start off with the King of Swords, okay? That's interesting that it's a sword, so we'll talk about that. What in you needs healing? So we're going to do a little bit of shadow work here. What needs healing for you to be able to let these illusions or false beliefs go? There was something that definitely wanted to jump out here, and you have the Knight of Pentacles. So that's sitting in your shadow. And then what does the tarot suggest for reconnecting for your true self? So what's the advice from the tarot? These cards seem to be really bending, and they're not normally like that. This is my favorite deck, actually. It's like they're bending on me. The Magician in Reverse. That came up in the last reading I did, Magician in Reverse. That's very interesting for that card to come up in the same spot. All right, so King of Swords. For the illusions or false belief that you have about yourself. And you start off with a sword. So remember, the sword's all about authenticity. Even when it's sitting with a king. So he's holding that sort of bullshit. Sorry, the sword of cutting through the bullshit, the sort of bullshit. He's, the king is our ego self. It's a masculine side of us. And the last thing that your ego self wants you to do is get to your authenticity. It wants nothing to do with authenticity. In fact, your ego self is the one that puts on all these masks and goes out into society and has different ones, actually. You know, you can have that people-pleasing mask, and whatever person you come in contact with, you change your masks, and that's what the ego self is all about. It wants nothing to do with it. So what this tells me is that this indecisiveness is your ego self that's going, don't you dare go here. It'll want you to stay where you are, because it's a part that really has protected us all our life. And the reason why it's protected us all our life, because it made sure that we were safe when we were younger. But what it doesn't realize, our ego self, it doesn't realize that we're an adult now and that we can think for ourselves. But so it'll continue to try to block anything to do with your authenticity. And so if you're sitting here feeling quite blocked and very indecisive, it'll want to keep you confused because it does not want you to go further. So let's have a couple of clarifiers for this. The King of Swords right here. And you get a very powerful Major Arcana card. You get the Temperance card with the 8 of Wands. And so the Temperance card is really a card of middle ground, it can be, but it's also a card of just taking your time. You know, this angel's dipping its toe in the water, and whenever I see water, it's like emotions, right? And so it's like this, I'm sensing that there's some emotions around this that you have. Maybe there's some real fear around this, right? Because the ego self is a really scared part. And every time I say that, I'm going to laugh, because I had somebody comment on my videos once saying, last month, LMFO, the ego isn't a scared part. And I'm like, it is. It's a very scared part. So your ego self doesn't want you to know that. And so maybe you're feeling some fear here, but the ego self is, your ego self is just wanting you to go, whoa, slow down here. You're going too fast. You can't do this. Wanting you to think that you're, you know, again, another way to sort of confuse you. But there are some emotions that are coming up here, and I imagine they're probably fear. I mean, I think here's this Eight of Wands, and look at them. There's no person in this. There's no person in this reading. This is a card of pure wand energy. And you know, you got that energy, this vibrational. You came here, you came here to show your energy, to use your energy. In fact, it also said that, you know, you don't even need to change your energy. It's just that powerful. And here's your energy right here. It's bursting to go. And yet your ego self is going, whoa, no, slow it down, you know, a little bit at a time. And so that's where you're feeling this incredible pull inside of you, like you know that you're being pulled, and yet you've got this ego self going, whoa, you know. And so I'm wondering, sometimes I think there might be some anxiety in there, but it's definitely time for you to go. And I just kind of picture it as you're holding on to your dog going for a walk, and it's so anxious to take off, right? And you're holding on to it. Hold on, I got to get my shoes on or something. And so that's what that kind of is coming up here for me. And what in you needs healing in order to let this go? What you have to heal here in order for you to finally be able to make this leap that you're meant to go towards. We have the Knight, and it's a Knight of Pentacles. And so this is going to be about your childhood. This is going to be about when you were a teenager. And this is a teenage part, actually, your Knight. And it's the part of you that wanted to go. It was the part of you that wanted freedom. It was the part of you that literally wanted to do what you wanted to do, and you didn't want anybody to tell you what to do. And it's a very grounding energy, and it's hard to ground. Sometimes think of yourself as a teenager where you might have felt quite ungrounded, actually, where you just wanted to go, but something was kind of keeping you down. And so it's really focusing on this part of you. I call it a freedom fighter. So part of you that wants to run, that wants to take off. And this is a part that's coming up from, I'm going to say, when you were a teenager. And you wanted to take off. Maybe there was something you wanted to do when you were younger and you weren't allowed to, right? Something like pulled you back and said you weren't allowed to. And this is where you're needing some healing around this. So one more card here to explain what's going on when you were younger. We had the King of Cups and then the Ten of Wands in reverse. So here's the King showing up again, but this time it's the King of Cups. And the King, again, is our ego self, but it has, Cups are all about emotions. And so I'm going to say that when you were younger, there was a part of you that wanted to do something, and you felt like you were being very oppressed when you were younger. You weren't allowed to do things. You have this anger, this ungrounded, I use the word grounded over here, about wands, grounding wands. And it's interesting because when we're younger and we're not allowed to do what we want to do, or, you know, we're feeling like we're being very pulled back, we can become extremely angry. And the ego self sometimes will kick in and just actually tell you, don't you dare, let that anger out. And again, it's a protective part, especially if you were shown at a very young age not to ever let your anger out. So maybe you were somebody that showed their anger when you were younger. And if you're sitting here kind of nodding your head going, yeah, I don't really show my anger right now. I don't. And if you are somebody that does not show their anger, it is because when you were younger, or if you're somebody that shows your anger at the wrong people in the wrong times, that's another sign that tells me that you were. My cat's crying in the background and it's kind of disturbing me, so I'll try to ignore it. That's another sign that you definitely were not allowed to use your anger when you were younger. And so now what I'm seeing is there's some anger that you need to get to for sure. And I think I did mention it earlier that maybe there was some anger and then now it's showing up again. And here's the Ten of Wands. And in an upright position, this Ten of Wands tells me it's the end of the wand cycle. It's like this individual that's, done with all these burdens that they've been carrying for so long. Now, this is when you were younger, and it's in reverse. So this tells me that you just gave up when you were younger. You gave up because you knew there was no sense in doing this, no sense in fighting when you were being oppressed or being controlled, actually, and not being allowed to do what you wanted to do. Well, you can just picture a teenager, right, wanting to do something. And so here you are feeling again as an adult, having to, I want to go and do this. And maybe you know what it is. You're feeling that pull. But then there's something pulling you back. And this is what happened to you when you were younger, right? Our adult life will play out things that happened to us when we were younger. They're like patterns. They're things that we need to see. We see that now because we need to go back and heal this. And so you're being asked to heal when you were younger, when you were very angry because you weren't allowed to do this. And you want to do it now, but it's like it's replaying what happened to you when you were younger. And so you've got this ungrounded anger that you need to get out. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute once I look at the Magician card here. So we're going to go to the advice from the Tarot. So what does the Tarot suggest for reconnecting to yourself? Well, the Magician card's here. And the Magician is the card that talks about you have everything in you, Libra. Everything in you to do this. You have all the power in you if you want. You have everything in you, but you don't believe you can do this. And this is why. You couldn't do it when you were younger. You absolutely couldn't. You can now. You're an adult now, right? And so let's have 2 more cards to go with this Magician card. Oof, you get a lot of cards here. So you start off with the Page of Pentacles, and then the Two of Swords in reverse, then the Seven of Wands, and then you get the Magician card upside down again, and that just, kind of solidifies everything and kind of saying that, this is really important. Remember that you have everything in you because you're going to feel like you can't do this. But the first card that comes out is the next card that comes out. Oh, it was the Page of Pentacles actually that came out, I think. And I forget the order of this, but I know it was a Page of Pentacles. Page of Pentacles talks about this younger part of you. And again, it's the Pentacle. And Pentacle starts... the Pentacle talks about your body. And so this younger part of you, your inner child... knew when they were about 4, 5, 6 years old, knew what it meant like to be in their body, to be grounded, to be able to use their anger. But they weren't allowed to, because when an inner child shows up, it means they need healing. And so you need, and we've already said about you have this ungrounded anger. And so the Tarot was saying you have to heal. You have to listen to this younger part of you that's very angry. When they were told they could not use their anger when they were younger, right? And so as a teenager, you learned as well that you couldn't use your anger. Here you are right here when you were younger. I'm going to say that you were a nonconformist, because this guy has two different shoes on, and he's here at this top of this trying to fight all these people that are oppressing him, right? And they wanting him to, who do you think you are? Is there somebody that said that to you when you were younger? Who do you think you are, right? When all you were doing was expressing what you wanted to do, and you were standing up for yourself. But you were told, get off that pedestal that you're on. And so I think when that happened when you were younger, that's when you went up in your head, because this individual that has become very stubborn and not wanting to look at anything. And I think what it's saying here is that you need to look at this now. I think for the longest time, you've been up in your head with your ego self saying, don't you dare look at this, right? He's all blindfolded. But it's really time for you to look at this now. This happened to you when you were younger. The same situation you're in right now has happened to you when you were younger. You just don't remember it. And if you start to piece it together, maybe what I'm saying, you're kind of going, oh, right? And again, I said that it ended with the Magician card in reverse, just like you started off with right here. You have everything in you, Libra. I know that you're sitting in a place where it's just like, I don't know which way to turn. I just don't know how to do this, but you can do this. I'm going to leave you with a playlist on anger, because anger is a beautiful emotion that will bring out, in a grounded way, it'll bring back your power. It'll bring back change. Anger is your power. And you're somebody that wasn't allowed to use it. And so now you're gonna use it. And I'm gonna tell you in those videos how to journal from your anger, to get it out. And that's what I do to get rid of my anger, to ground my anger that I wasn't allowed to use when I was younger. I journal from it. So I want you to have compassion for yourself, Libra, for what you're working through. I know that this is a very difficult journey, but it's the most important one in your life. So take care, and I'll talk soon. Bye.